Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my week number 8 tight end start or sit decisions for every single matchup on the week from Thursday Night Football all the way up until Monday Night Football. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 8 tight end start or sit decisions for every single matchup of week number 8 of the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the cold like Minnesota Vikings at the Los Angeles Rams. Now, for the Vikings, if Hockenson is able to go, which as I'm recording today's video still isn't unknown, I would personally play him. Now, he is much more of a fringe start due to the fact that he is coming off a big injury and could easily be limited in terms of his workload and his snap share in this offense. But I still believe even a limited version of TJ Hockenson could fall ass backwards into the end zone. With so many limited practices in a row this week, though, it does tell me that he will more than likely not be full steam ahead, the normal TJ Hockenson that you are used to. But again, you never really know unless the coaches come out and tell you exactly what the game plan is. So with so much confusion, he is a fringe start in the tight end 2 range. Great matchup here up against the Rams, but there are just too many question marks to rank him higher. Kobe Parkinson with Cooper Kupp back and the potential return of Puka Nacua, another guy who might be back, he might not be back. It is kind of up in the air. I do believe the targets will be going in the wrong direction for Parkinson, and with him being a guy that needs a lot of targets. Why is that? Because he doesn't have touchdown upside, or very limited touchdown upside, because once they're in the red zone, they are jamming the ball down the defense's throat with Kyren Williams. So at this point, to me, he is a clear sit. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate with Mark Andrews and the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. Now, Mark Andrews, to me, has been way better than the start of the season, and that is very simple analysis, right? He's been a back-to-back top 6 tight end in back-to-back weeks, and based on what we saw from weeks 1 through 5, I would have thought that this was impossible. From weeks 1 through 5, he had 2 games where he scored 0 points. It wasn't like he got 2, 3 points. He scored 0 fucking points, goose eggs, in 2 games. But over the last 2 weeks, he has seen a bump in usage. Now, the 4 targets a game is still far from ideal, right? You would like Andrews to get 5, 6, 7 targets per game. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Mia Malkova, with his red zone usage being solid, I do believe he should be qualified to be a start. He scored 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks and 15 or more points in both games. Now, I get that this could all come falling down like the sky in Chicken Little, but I got him as a high-end tight end 2 right now, and you can argue him all the way up to being a top 8 tight end. David Njoku was the #1 target for the team last week, where they played quarterback hot potato. They started with massage man Deshaun Watson, then they went to DTR, and they closed the game out with famous Jameis Winston, 14 targets for 10 receptions and 76 yards and a score as the tight end #1. That touchdown also came from Jameis, which is a nice tip of the cap towards David Njoku being productive with Jameis as the starting quarterback. Now, without Watson, to me, you can finally be excited to play some of these Browns players because the offense will not move at a snail's pace. So I'm excited to play David Njoku, and I'm going to lock him in as a top 8 tight end with clear top 5 upside. The other Ravens tight ends at this point, it just kind of seems like Andrews is the guy, so I don't have any interest in playing a guy like Isaiah Likely. Next up, we got the Tennessee Titans at the Detroit Lions. Now, Chig Okonkwo had his second best game of the season last week, but he couldn't even muster up 10 fantasy points. He was the tight end 17 with 4 receptions on 4 targets for 50 yards. Even with DeAndre Hopkins now gone in Kansas City, I don't think there's a need to get cute and play Chig because the quarterback play here simply does not allow Chig to flourish. for Sam Laporta. He has been nothing short of a colossal bust this season. There is no way to even be nice about it. You drafted him as either the tight end 1 or 2, and he punched you in the mouth, Mike Tyson punch-out style, and he can't even get 10 points in 5 of 6 games. I get there's some tight ends this season that have been disappointing, but they've been okay. Sam Laporta has been disappointing and a complete and utter disaster. But I will note, without Jameson Williams, he should receive a boost in targets in the short term. If he is successful this week up against the Titans, you should be looking to sell him the second the game ends or in like the third or the fourth quarter. If he already has 10, 15 points, sell him immediately, because while this offense is a wagon, they aren't looking at Sam Laporta. I get he has the skill set to be great, but they're not giving him the ball. He's an afterthought in this offense. So once Jameson Williams comes back, I'm not going to be banging the drum for Sam Laporta. Next up, we move to the Indianapolis Colts. This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue at the Houston Texans. Now, Mo Alley-Cox is in a tight end carousel and appears to be the best out of the group. With that said, though, Anthony Richardson being under center is no bueno for these wide receiver tight end weapons on the team. To me, he is downright unstartable. Even guys with the skill set of Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, who are both very solid wide receivers, they are not even startable. So a guy much further down the totem pole in Mo Money, Mo Cox, he is a clear sit. Dalton Schultz continues to disappoint every single week. Even without Nico Collins, at this point, I think it's just time to throw in the towel. Last week, he had just 2 targets for 1 catch and 28 yards. Now, I get the team got rinsed by the Packers, but even so, he has yet to crack the top 20 all season. I get deep down the upside is there, and honestly, I think Dalton Schultz is a talented tight end, but he's fucked us over too many times in a row for me to feel any ounce of confidence. With that said, while I've basically just taken a Cleveland steamer right on the guy's chest, now he's going to go out there and score 1 or 2 touchdowns, despite having 0 touchdowns all season long. Next up, we move to the Green Bay Packers at the Jacksonville Jaguars, a very exciting game at the tight end position. Evan Ingram is one of those guys, in my opinion, that when you play him. You don't have to think about it at all. He has the ability to get 8 or more targets in any given matchup and could be a top 3 tight end. Last week, he wasn't the hottest, right? 5 of 5 for 35 yards, but the week prior in London up against the Bears, he had 10 catches on 10 targets for 102 yards as the tight end 3. To me, he is a clear top 8 option, even if the matchup isn't the most ideal. Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese, to me, is a solid top 12 tight end bet weekly. Tight end 1 in back-to-back games up against the Minnesota Vikings and the Rams in week 4 and 5. And last week, he was the tight end 11 up against the Texans with 3 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown in an offense that is as beautiful, chef's kiss magnifique, as the Packers offense, and an offense that can lay the pipe for that ass like they're a plumber in any given game and run up a huge score. And against a defense that is as bad as the film Morbius, I am ecstatic to play Kraft this week as a top 8 tight end. Next up, we move to the Arizona Cardinals at the Miami Dolphins. Now, Jonnu Smith was the tight end 2 last week with 7 receptions on 7 targets for 96 yards and a touchdown in Indianapolis. Jonnu has now had back-to-back games with 7 or more targets. But I do have to question here if this type of a workload, if this type of targets is able to continue with Tua Tagovailoa under center. Back in week 2, up against the Bills with Tua in the game where he sadly got concussed, Jonnu did see 6 receptions on 7 targets for 53 yards. So if this offense can prove to me that they want to feature a tight end, which has not been the case in a Mike McDaniel offense with the Miami Dolphins, when Gesicki was here, sure, he hit the Gesicki gritty, which was funny as fuck, but he wasn't getting a lot of usage. So Smith will be start-worthy going forward if that is the case. But as of right now, I don't feel confident enough playing him to throw my stamp of approval on him. Now, if you're in a deeper league, right? If I was to expand, hey, instead of my top 18 guys being start-worthy, if I went to 20, then Janu would be a start-worthy tight end because I do like the matchup, but again, there are big question marks here. Next up, we got Trey McBride for the Cardinals. Now, while McBride hasn't necessarily lived up to the Hawk 2 special that I gave him during fantasy football draft season, he has been decent. Again, based on where you drafted him, maybe you wish you drafted a different player, maybe a completely different position entirely, but if you can continue to put up 10 plus points with tight ends being so volatile weekly, I can be happy with him, especially since he has 15 plus point upside. He has been a top 4 tight end in 2 of 6 games this week up against the Dolphins. He can certainly do that again. He receives a heavy dosage of targets weekly, 6 or more targets in every single game on the year, and 7 or more in 4 of 6 games. So to me, he deserves a clear top 8 ranking. Next up, we move to the New York Jumbo Jets at the New England Deflatriots. Now, Hunter Henry in the Drake May era has been a top 7 tight end in both games. Last week in London Town, he smashed the Jaguars like they were a fucking whack-a-mole machine. 8 receptions on 9 targets for 92 yards. While the Jets defense is good against the tight end, I don't think the Jets defense is a pushover. I still do feel confident in Henry as a low-end tight end 1 due to the sheer amount of volume he should receive. Now, Tyler Conklin, I like Conklin. And I genuinely believe that he is a very underrated tight end at the NFL level. But, and this is a big but, shout out Alexis, Texas, with Adams now in town, and with them having so many red zone options, right? You can hand the ball to Braylon Allen. You can hand it to Breece Hall. You can throw it to Garrett Wilson. You can throw it to big boy Devontae Adams, right? You could throw it to Aaron Rodgers' best friend, his butt buddy, Allen Lazard. So, knowing the red zone upside isn't the highest, and knowing the targets are going to fall off, I just can't play Conklin. Now, last week he did find the end zone, so it is possible. Good games are going to happen, but again, I do believe he's a good player. But if he's getting 3 to 4 targets a week, I just don't feel confident starting him. Next up, we move to the Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a very exciting matchup, but it would have been a lot more exciting if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were not hurt. But before we talk about this game in depth, I would like to give you guys and talk about the rest of the tight ends on this slate. I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment, you'll receive your free pick, which tonight is Matthew Stafford. Matthew snapback higher than half of a total yard. You match that with any of the other players playing on the Vikings or any of the players playing on Sunday or Monday, and if both of your picks hit, you receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you put in multiple other picks, then the payout will obviously increase. You're watching this after Thursday, the game is already kicked off, and you're like, Nick, what happens now? You'll actually receive a different player higher than half a total yard or an NBA player higher than half a total point. If you don't watch the NBA, that's okay, though, because you can match your NBA pick with an NFL pick. So make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious. You get that free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So back out into things here. We got the Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is, like I said, one of those matchups where you would just be salivating thinking about it. I would be unable to sleep due to all the blood flowing downstairs because of how excited I would be. But without Evans, without Godwin, it does kind of pump a little of the pressure out of the tire. It pushes away a little of that allure of this matchup, I would say. But with the injury to Evans relatively early on in the game against the Ravens on Monday Night Football, Cade Otton took over as one of the top options on the team. 8 receptions on 10 targets for 100 yards. Now, Otton has always been a guy that you could start due to how good the offense was with Baker Mayfield cooking so well. But it was always hard to list him inside the top 12, or sometimes it was hard to even rank him as a start-worthy player because of how many guys they have. But with Mike Evans out with the hamstring and Godwin on IR, Otton is now potentially the number 1 target in this offense. Now, I don't project him as a top 5 tight end because there's so many more skilled tight ends than Cade Otton, but the volume is going to be there, and he did finish extremely well last week. Now, I think this could be a very high-scoring affair, or more than likely a game where the Bucs are chasing and have to throw a fuck ton. So I got Otton as a clear top 10 tight end, but he is closer to number 10 than he is number 1. Kyle Pitts has started to finally actually be a consistent tight end. And technically, that's a lie because early on the season, he was consistently dog shit. But now he has actually been consistently good. 3 straight games with 10 or more points and 2 games inside of the top 10. Last week up against Seattle, he had 7 receptions on 9 targets for 65 yards. And with the Bucs defense getting plowed like the snow in the winter by the tight end position, I feel very nice about Pitts finishing as a low-end tight end 1. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Cincinnati Bengals. Grant Calcaterra should be the starter for the Eagles. Dallas Goedert's dealing with the hamstring injury that had him miss last week. He was not seen in practice yesterday on Wednesday, and I am very pessimistic on his ability to suit up. Without him, Calcaterra will start, who saw just 1 target last week, so he's a no-go. Eric All Jr. and Mike Gesicki split the load like they're in a Plug Talk video. Eric All seems like he's going to get more targets weekly, but that is far from a guarantee. 3 or fewer targets over the last 3 games, and 2 of 3 games with 2 or less. Even against a Eagles defense that isn't the best, I am out on Mike Gesicki as well as Eric All. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints at the Los Angeles Chargers to start off the 4 p.m. slate. Taysom Hill was back in practice yesterday with the ribs injury. He is essentially the most boom or bust tight end in the game. He could easily elbow drop the Chargers defense, go nuclear, score 15, 20, 25 points, right? He could throw a touchdown. He could catch a touchdown and run in a touchdown, the triple crown all in one game. But he could also go out there and do absolutely fucking nothing, not get any looks, not be able to run the ball at all, and score 3 points because his usage fluctuates so heavily. If he plays and you're looking for that crazy upside, that top 5 upside, and you don't trust your tight end, go ahead and play him. But there is far too much downside, especially coming off of the injury, to want to play him. Will Dissly missed practice on Wednesday with a shoulder injury, which is a new injury for him. If he plays, he has actually been sneaky decent and looked good to honestly great last week with 8 of 11 for 81 yards as the tight end 7. Overall, though, I don't think he will see that many targets weekly and will more than likely be in the 4 to 5 target range. And with a run-heavy offense, I don't want to be starting Dissly. Next up, we move to the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills at the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Noah Fant has looked far better over the last 2 weeks compared to the start of the season. He's on his Mark Andrews, right? Last week, he went 4 for 4. Like he was at Wendy's for 65 yards. Now, without DK Metcalf, I think Fant becomes even more interesting, as he should see a projectable bump in volume in a game that could be a shootout, a back and forth affair, a really fun high-scoring game with little defense. I got Fant in that tight end 15 to 18 range. So while he is low down as a low-end start, there's a good argument to be made that this is potentially his best game yet again because you're taking DK Metcalf out of the offense. Dalton Kincaid was limited with the collar bone on practice yesterday in Wednesday. I'd love to be in Wednesday if you've seen what that chick looks like. God damn. Kincaid has been a relatively large letdown this season. He hasn't been so bad to where he is unstartable, but he hasn't been a consistent top 10 to 12 tight end either. Tight end 20 last week up against the Titans. Not the best. 3 receptions on 6 targets for 52 yards. But again, I do have high hopes that this could be a high-scoring game that could let Kincaid be a top 5 guy. I got him as a fringe top 12 tight end in the 12 to 14 range at the tight end position this week. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears at the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders. Now, Cole Kmet has been very hit or miss this season, but outside of week 1 up against the Titans, he's gotten you 8 points in the bad games. Against the Jaguars prior to the bye in London, he was the tight end 1, 5 of 5 for 70 yards and not 1 but 2 touchdowns. The Commanders' defense has more holes than a fan cover, so with the tremendous amount of upside that Kmet has, and with this offense percolating looking great, I got Kmet as a high upside tight end number 2, close to the range where Kincaid is at. Zach Ertz is going to get you 8 to 12 points basically every week. Is that fun? No, but is it the worst? Fuck no, baby. Back-to-back weeks inside of the top 10, and last week he scored his first touchdown of the season up against the Panthers. Now, regardless of if it's Marcus Mariota or if it is Jaden Stormy Daniels, I don't love Ertz. but he'll be okay. Just not a guy you're going to be jumping for joy like you're fucking Elon Musk every time there's cameras around him. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers at the Denver Broncos. Jatavion Colonel Sanders is dealing with a groin/wrist injury and was limited on Wednesday. And he actually has been playing well in back-to-back games as a top 14 tight end. But up against the Broncos, and now with the midget Bryce Young under center, you're going to want to sit Sanders down. Lucas Krull and Adam Troutman, the Fishman, are operating as the tight end 1A and 1B in this offense. Neither of them are very good, and even if Krull gets 4 targets yet again, I don't expect him to come even close to knocking on the door of being top 18, so I would sit him. Next up, we got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders in what might be the best tight end matchup of the week. Travis Kelce, despite no juju, Corvette last week against the 49ers because he got hurt early on in Santa Clara. Kelce's targets fell apart like that Post Malone song. 4 receptions on 5 targets for 17 yards. When prior to the bye, he went back-to-back with 9 or more targets and a top 5 finish in both games. Here up against the Raiders, I believe he will return to form as a top 5 tight end yet again, even with DeAndre Hopkins in town. Now, Brock Bowers, without Adams, he's the clear number 1 option in Viva Las Vegas. 3 straight games with 10 or more targets, and last week he had 14 targets for 10 receptions and 93 yards at the tight end 4. Even if the team does struggle to find the end zone weekly, and even with Gardner Minshew being Gardner below Minshew, Bowers will see just a ridiculous amount of volume to lead him to becoming a top 5 tight end yet again, and I got him as the tight end numero uno, the head of the table, solo Sikoa this week. Next up, we move to the Sunday Night Football matchup because you waited all day for Sunday night. The Dallas Cowboys at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Kittle did not practice on Wednesday with a foot injury, but you don't really want to be panicking too hard on injury reports that come out on Wednesday because Kittle's a vet, and that's veteran rest day. So I'm operating under the assumption that he suits up, but, sometimes assumptions make an ass out of you and me, so you want to monitor the situation. This season, Kittle's been one of the most consistent tight ends in fantasy football, if not the most consistent. Top 10 in every single game and 14 or more points in 5 of 6 games. The Dallas Cowboys defense doesn't worry me at all, and without Ayuk, and more than likely without Deebo Samuel, I expect Kittle to get dirty, fed the rock the whole game, and potentially finish as the tight end number 1. We saw Kittle Hulk smash the Cowboys defense last season. For Jake Ferguson, Fergalicious, Fergie, the Cowboys defense got plowed prior to the bye like their name was Ava Adams. We saw Ferguson struggle mightily as the tight end 28, just 3 receptions on 4 targets for 11 yards. Now, I do expect the offense to look better coming out the bye, so Ferguson should finish as a top 12 tight end. But with Dak normally not being able to perform like he has erectile dysfunction against good teams, Ferguson is a lower-end tight end 1 compared to my normal ranking of him being in the high-end range. Next up, we close things out with Monday Night Football. My hair is just popping out of my hat right now. We got the New York Football Giants at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Theo Johnson, I'm going to give him some credit. Him Andercuss style. Because he's been solid. He's a solid player. Problem is, for one, Daniel Jones sucks. And for 2, the Giants O-line couldn't stop me rushing the passer. So Daniel Jones doesn't even have a chance, especially up against TJ Watt and friends. If Theo gets his normal 3 targets a game, with how few red zone chances I believe the team will get, there's no reason to play Theo Johnson. Freiermuth is a fringe top 18 start-worthy tight end. Last week, he had his second highest amount of targets, or his second highest amount of yards, I apologize, on the season up against the Jets with 51. But he only had 2 catches and didn't find the end zone. He has had 3 straight games now with only 3 targets, where earlier on in the season, he was getting around 4 or 5. Now, I get that Russie is looking A1 like the steak sauce, so for that reason, I think that Freiermuth is a good tight end. I think he's a talented player, so he's a start, but with the targets dipping, I almost said dripping. This cheese is drippy, bruh. He is just in that fringe start range for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. caress that like button down below. I would appreciate it a ton. Leave a comment if you got any questions. I try to help you guys out down there. And check out Underdog if you are new, promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description to claim your free pick, higher than half a total yard for Stafford, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I love you guys more than you will ever know. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. We'll be live tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time around then to talk about Thursday Night Football and answer all your start-sit questions. So I love you. Have a great one. As always, good boy.